Uh, Hello everyone, greetings from National Skills Network. Today we are going to look at a very important topic which concerns all of us, every child, every parent, every school, and rather every citizen of India. This is something to do with the current focus on vocationalization of school education. And with regard to NEP 2020, there has been a new focus. There's a lot of reimagining happening around this topic. So we thought we should have the expert from this domain and none other than Mr. Raj Gilda, who's agreed to give us some time today for this conversation. So welcome to this conversation, Raj. Uh, yeah, for our audience, some of you must have, watched him speak or, visited the website of his organization. He leads LendAHand India. He's the founder of LendAHand India, and they have been doing phenomenal work in the area of school level vocational courses for a very long time. So I would like to get started by asking him about the story of LendAHand India. What would be the highlights in the journey so far? So Raj, please tell us more about the organization and the impact.
Yes. No, first of all, my sincere thanks to you and the National Skills Network for inviting us for this conversation. I think NSN is doing a great job of creating awareness about vocational training, vocational education, and happy to be part of this conversation today. Journey of Lenda in India began like almost 2006-7, so 13, 14 years back, when vocational education or Skill India or Make in India were not the day-to-day words that we speak about, today. We started literally with 2 schools, half an employee and a 20,000 rupees budget, so things have come a long way in 15 years now, I must say. And I think the feeling very satisfied or very, very happy about the fact that, when we started in 2007-8, we had to actually sell vocational education to people. People will say, oh, I need to study math, I need to study science, I need to take away, space on the school timetable and all that. Why vocational education, in this, right? So I think we are in sort of, April 2022 now. I'm very, very happy and very glad that abhi vocational education bechna nahi padta. I don't have to sell vocational education anymore, It is more about that how do we make it happen, the effectiveness of it. But the basic premise, or the necessity for it has been accepted now, right? So it's a very gratifying for us at Lenda in India that we have reached this stage, sort of, now here.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with reference to few of the initiatives, which we published on NSN from LendAHand India, I remember a couple of occasions like Children's Day and some other occasion, we got very inspiring stories from LendAHand India. So as you said, the fact that, you're saying that you don't have to sell this concept of vocational education means that, you put in a lot of effort and the impact is really showing. And today, I think we have reached another level, where we are saying that vocational education has to be mainstreamed. So what do you have to say to this? Because we from NSN, we keep track of a lot of developments. We speak to a lot of people, and I personally speak in forums and I try to learn where people are. So one point which I feel is maybe you're the right person to tell us about what exactly is the framework for vocational education in schools. Like,
Yeah.
the NEP is saying, we should have internships from 6 to 8 standard, bagless days, and all these interesting things,
Yes.
apprenticeships, all those things. So can you
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about the framework? I'm sure many will benefit from this.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, no, sure. I think, first of all, let us understand what does mainstreaming mean, right,
Mhm.
in this, because we know that, so far, vocational education is only for a maid's daughter or a maid's son, not for my son or daughter, right? Which basically meant that there is some kind of a stigma, there is some kind of a special institution where one will go, but not in my school, in this, right? So the whole idea behind mainstreaming is that it should be part of everybody's education. So whether it is a CBSE schools, whether it is a state board school, whether it is ICSE school, it should not really matter. And vocational education as a part of the applied learning, especially when we are looking at the grade 6 to grade 12, which is the focus of the national education policy now. It is about how do we, apart from the employment and livelihood, how do we also learn from vocational education, from the academic perspective and life skills perspective as well, in this. Now, in terms of the current, current setup of vocational education in the country, so majority of the schools are in the government schools, sort of offering it. And within that as well, majority, close to about 10,000 plus schools are offering vocational education from grade 9 to grade 12 under Samagra Shiksha. Under Samagra Shiksha, there is a scheme called Vocationalization of School Education, under which one subject out of 5 or 6 subject that you are taking in grade 9 to 12 is being taken as a vocational subject. There are some states where it is an additional subject as well. So it depends on, which state you are looking at. But what is important here is that it has a it is part of the, a scheme of subjects of the state board. It has a state board exam. There is a NSDC, or Sector Skill Council certification as well. There is a workshop and tools and equipment being set up in the school. There are 2 vocational trainers, corresponding to the 2 subjects which are being taught are also deployed, right? So in a way, and the guest lectures and field visits and, all those are part of the curriculum or the scheme as well. So all the, I would say, elements which are needed for a successful vocational education scheme are already there now, right? I think the question now is that, and it's already there in 10,000 plus schools, which is not a small number if you look at it, from a something new which is about to happen. So now looking at the effectiveness of it, the industry connect, what is happening to, what is the outcome after 12th, the students who are finishing it is what we need to look at now. But I think this particular scheme of vocationalization of school education has definitely given a good foundation. I think the next task on our hand is that how do we make sure that it doesn't remain only in the government schools? Because otherwise, we are going to again, add to the whole perception that this is only for the government schools and not for the, private schools, or not for aided schools, or not for CBSE schools and all that too. And I'm very glad to share here on the forum that CBSE has also taken a huge step towards introducing skill education in the schools, today under the leadership of the current chairman as well as the current director for, the skill education. I must say that CBSE also has been, putting in a lot of effort, which is really important because as we know, many of the CBSE schools are privately funded. They are not government schools.
Yeah.
And when vocational education is offered in a private school, that is a signal to the market, right? That yes, this should be done by all and not just by some government school students or only poor students or those who are not academically inclined here.
Yeah, I think this is going to go a long way in breaking that stigma or the status quo, which otherwise would have got reinforced, right?
Yes.
Without this, I think at this point, maybe you can also tell us, because a lot of people today have a certain kind of an apprehension. They feel, okay, where will we get teachers from? Will we be forced to, have these courses in our school? And what will be the impact on students who are coming from, let's say, well-to-do families? What will their parents think? There are a whole lot of questions. So maybe we can learn a bit about, from LendAHandIndia, from your journey, what has been the model? How did you manage to overcome few things? And, so probably some things like this will help us.
Sure. So I think, anything which is new
Yeah.
has to be sold, right? I mean, whether it is a new smartphone, new laptop, new gadget, whatever, we are not going to buy it just because somebody is telling us to do, in that. The seeing is believing, So I think the very first step has been seeing is believing. So I think very thankful to our initial set of schools, which sort of took up the mantle to sort of, do this. So, and our experience has been so far that the parents have actually moved on, frankly. They are very much in favor of vocational education. It's just that we haven't been able to demonstrate to them what it can look like, and otherwise too. So our experience has been that the year one is little difficult because nobody knows what exactly this thing is going to look like. But once you set up the lab, there is a vocational trainer, then there's internship happening. The students are going on field visits, there are guest lectures and all that. Suddenly the daughter or the son of that parent is going back home and talking about it. कि ये आज मैंने ये किया. This is what I did in the school. That is what I did in the school and all that. So, and we have seen that the enrollment in the school is going up, the dropout rate is going down, attendance is going up in the school as well, especially for the vernacular medium students. We all know that vernacular medium, the schools are facing the enrollment issues, and we have seen, day in and every time, whenever vocational education was introduced, it has led to the increase in enrollment, increase in attendance as well, which is direct actually reflection, almost like a real-time reflection of acceptance of vocational education, per se. Now, in terms of the resources required and otherwise, right? And I think there is a long way to go. Currently, all the qualification and resources required, whether in terms of trainer qualification, whether in terms of the tools and equipment, all that, we are following the NSQF National Qualification Framework Standard, the qualification packs, which has been developed for 18 plus population. So I think there are discussions now that we need to develop special standards for the schools as well in that, especially for grade 9 and 10, when a grade 10 passing out student is not really looking for an employment. We are looking for, we give them a broader skill exposure area and otherwise. So I have a feeling that, any such kind of customization which can be done for vocational education in the school, especially for grade 9th and 10th, will go a long way in order to universalizing it. The NEP talks about 50% of the schools or, students having access to vocational education, by 2025. So in order to do that, customizing these kind of norms and making sure that there is a greater acceptance is going to be very critical.
Right.
Because, and especially as we spoke earlier, especially for the acceptance from the private schools, because they are not going to have resources which are being given by the government and otherwise, which are required currently in order to make it happen.
Since you mentioned this, the NSQF level, QP, NOS and things, at present, is it like level 1, 2 and all are assigned to the school level? Is it like that right
Yes.
now?
So currently in the scheme, everything which is introduced in the school, all the subjects are NSQF compliant. That is by law, and I'm very glad that, that kind of a requirement is being put in place. And normally grade 9 and 10, so it happens in two steps. There is an entry and exit on entry in grade 9, and there is an entry in grade 11 as well. And there can be exit in grade 10, and there can be exit in grade 12 as well, right? This is to take care of the fact that many of the schools in India are up to grade 10. They are, as they call it, non-composite. So what if you are going to another school after grade 10, then suddenly there is a break in vocational education. So that's why you can say they are divided into two parts. 9th and 10th is one part 1, and 11th and 12th is part 2, right, in this. And normally in grade 9 and 10, the qualification offered are NSQF level 1 or level 2. And in 11th and 12th, it is level 3 or level 4, depending on which sectors you are looking for. But it is progressive. So you will do level 2 in 9th and 10th, and you can opt for a higher qualification in the same sector in grade 11th and 12th.
Okay. Okay, so besides this, the technical aspect of vocational education, I have often heard you also talking about multi-skilling, need for multi-skilling at the school level, especially in the backdrop of the fact that, when these children, let's assume that they have to join the workforce, maybe after 10th or 12th, because I think legally after 14 years, they can take up like an apprenticeship or a job. So in such a case, how do we achieve this goal of multi-skilling, which is not just the technical skill, or which could be skilling across sectors also, isn't it?
Yes.
How would you, what is the vision for this?
Sure. So I think we have spoken about multi-skilling, especially at grade 9 and 10 level. In
Mhm.
that, like idea being that that in our education system up to grade 10 is a general education. You are studying everything, and in grade 10 you are making a choice whether you want to go for arts, commerce, science, whatever. So
Yeah.
the grade 10 is a very crucial point in anybody's life here.
Mm.
The model has been that in grade 9 and 10th, we expose our students to variety of skills. It can be gardening, it can be healthcare, it can be food processing, it can be electrical wiring, whatever it might be, without any gender bias as well. So we have girls doing carpentry, plumbing, electrical wiring, and we have boys doing stitching and food processing as well.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, especially in the school, vocational education is as much about life skills as about vocational per se, right? All of us should know little bit of electrical wiring. All of us should know how to make little bit of food, right? All of us should know how to, stitch a button in our shirt, right? And I think that is another narrative about vocational education that we need to get through. That vocational, because currently I would say that the vocational education is a poor cousin of life skills, in that. Whereas, I wish I had all that, thing happening in my school when I was going through it, regardless of whether I'll become an electrician or a gardener or whoever, right? So that is one part, that it gives you a foundational exposure if you undergo these, skills in the grade 9 and grade 10. Secondly, it also gives you a good ability to make an informed choice. What you like and what you don't like, and more importantly, what you don't like, in
Mm.
these cases. So that you are able to make a choice after 10th that, okay, I don't like healthcare, so there's no point in me, pushing for doctor, being a doctor or anything like that. Or you can say that I love gardening and I'm going to take botany as my specialization, right? So there is a lot of thing which we can look at. Now, coming to this, employment after 10th, and all that. Now, uh, see, there are a lot of schemes available for a short-term training program, like Pradhan Mantri Kaushalya Vikas Yojana, and many of them are 3 month long, 6 months long. So the people are dropping out can actually be captured by those schemes.
Yeah.
The our department of school education should worry about the students who are going to remain in the system.
Mm.
Those who drop out, there are enough number of schemes by government of India for them to give us short-term skilling in that. But I think our policy in terms of vocational education in the school should be based on that they are going to be there till grade 12, in that, and not assuming that they are going to drop out. For dropout, the entire Pradhan Mantri Kaushalya Vikas Yojana and NSDC's approved partners, and there's so many skill development initiative which are going on to take care of, long term and short term skilling, which
Yeah.
can get them employment sort of, right away. Because I think otherwise, there is a mixing of objective, here,
Mm.
and then it can lead to suboptimal outcome
Yeah.
in the process if you are sort of, looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, so besides all the details you just shared about, the vocationalization at the in the ninth and 10th and 11th and 12th, is there anything specific that you wish to mention, which I think our audience would be really finding it very helpful, mostly from the implementation aspect of this entire idea of offering vocational courses in the schools,
Yeah,
whether it's a private school or a government school or rural school or urban school.
urban schools. No, thank you. I think very, very pertinent question. I would say that, no amount of trainers, no amount of tools and equipment in the school, no amount of fancy curriculum is going to work unless the student is exposed to the real life world,
Mm.
in that. So, tying up with the local industries or local businesses and internships, which are making on-the-job training and internships, which give them real life exposure, is going to be very, very critical here. Without that, it is another supply-driven initiative, in that, and not on the demand side, because the vocational education can be successful only when it is, satisfying the demand side, which is the employer here, right? That is one part I would like to mention, that whoever is thinking about vocational education, please think as much about the education which happens outside of the school as inside of the school,
Yeah.
because normally we think about schooling only as in the four walls. Whereas I think given the times we are in today, the entire school can be totally outside of the school as well, right? In terms of the real skills which can be done. So that is one part which we must look at in terms of the connect with the employers. Uh, Secondly, whenever we say employer or industrial visit, we think only about organized sector. Organized sector is hardly probably, there are various, studies that, but the figure ranges from anywhere from 10% to 25% employment, right? The remaining 75% at minimum is with the small and micro enterprises in informal sector, right? And that is everywhere, and you very rightly mentioned urban, rural, tribal, all the areas. India is a land of entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs, right? In this. And I think how do we how do we involve them in the skill development initiative is very, very sort of critical. And so in fact one of the pilots, and it is going to be scaled up now, of LendAHandIndia, is about internship with small and micro enterprises. So we have our interns working with literally auto garage. We have interns working with some retail store. We have intern sort of who's working with a newspaper stand. And everywhere we have seen the outcome to be phenomenal, in this and all. And especially I would love to mention here that especially for the girl students, because the organized internships will be very few and far, to come. So naturally, many times the parents are not willing for their girl students to go, at distance and otherwise. But if it is in the same neighborhood in say 2-3 kilometer area, parents are comfortable for girl students to go for it. Secondly, we have also seen that when you do internship with a small and micro enterprise, you will do everything, right? You may sweep the floor, you will collect the cash, you will go to the bank to deposit, you will go to the wholesale market to sort of, place the order, which is the real life education, right? Because in life, nothing is single skill in the whole process. And this will really prepare you for your life, right? In that process. In our impact assessment studies have shown that almost 3 out of our 4 employees are willing to have our students back, as a whether in a part-time or a full-time job, right? So I think so I'm very happy to hear, know about the 10 bagless days, during grade 6 to 8, which will involve the local entrepreneurs, and taking it forward. How do we have a formal internship with them in the grade 11 and 12th, which we have been, working with various state governments, is going to be sort of, quite critical here.
Yeah. I think so for our audience, I think this is a live example from LendAHandIndia about what we are reading from the National Education Policy 2020 about how to make the informal apprenticeships or internships happen, at a very young age. So thank you so much for sharing this example. And also, incidentally, yesterday and day before, there was this ILO apprenticeship, boot camp, which I was attending virtually. And there was a lot of discussion on this particular topic. And I'm sure they're going to refer to the model which you have successfully executed for all these years. So on this note, I wish to thank you, Raj, for joining us today. For this talk, and we would like to be in touch with you and learn more from you, and please do share the updates with us to publish on NSN. Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.